Welcome to episode 50, 50 of the Half Point Per Podcast. All three back together again. First time in a while. I feel like we've had all three on here.
It's been like 2 weeks.
But that's a while. I'm Evan Riggs, joined by my co-host Dalton Willie, and of course the producer Johnny Pham. Johnny, do you yet have the bet that Dalton and I made on last week's podcast? Is that added to our spreadsheet yet?
Nope.
1 week off. He doesn't even listen to the show. Unbelievable.
Nope.
Unbelievable.
Nope. I did not listen to it, and I will not add it to the spreadsheet. Even if you tell me where it is now, I will still not add it.
Okay, and that is Johnny. Welcome back, Johnny. We love having you here so very much. Dalton, how are you tonight, my friend? I know it's we're starting a little bit late. You had a little bit of a long work phone call, but you're done with that now. You get just some nice, friendly fantasy football.
Well, I thought I would start. I have a deadline on Friday. I thought I would start my work week on Sunday with a wonderful Chiefs win against the division rival at this point.
Division rival.
Buffalo Bills. And I went to that game. And there was even a rain delay at halftime of that game. So I was there until about
who could have predicted that might happen?
That was predictable. It was. And then I had to get up the next day at 6 a.m. to begin this deadline work day. So all around, it's just been a horrible, horrible week. And as an owner of CEH, I had to watch my own player go down after I got the CEH was back after 2 weeks. So, I mean, just all around, it's not been a great week. We're taking a lot of L's, which probably means some W's are on the way.
So this week, we've got a panic meter episode, which pretty self-explanatory. We've got a handful of guys. I did mine scale of 1 to 5. Dalton, I don't know how you did yours. We didn't really communicate that. We can get that
scale them. I did 10, but I could just cut it in half.
We can do some mental math and get that figured out. But it sounds like Dalton's personal panic scale will be like a 7 this week. We'll see where some of these guys are.
I'm at a 9.
At a 9. Okay,
yeah.
Wow.
Personally, fantasy wise, 10.
So it's even worse fantasy wise. Oh man. Okay, so yeah, we've got a panic meter again, pretty self-explanatory. We've got a new game that we're going to try out this week. Not going to be an every week thing, but we'll do it here and there. It'll be semi-regular. Who's that Pokemon? Which I'll explain that when we get there. But that'll be fun as long as one of us doesn't give away the player before we try and have the other person guess. I know, Dalton, you said you're nervous about doing that. I literally wrote next to mine, do not say, all caps on my sheet. So really, really hope I can have some restraint there. But first, where I want to start is a pair of Seattle receivers. Just real quick, Tyler Lockett, Dalton, is a top blank receiver until Russell Wilson returns. So theoretically, 6 weeks.
I mean, unfortunately, because I own Lockett and I was very big on him in the offseason, I think he's probably a top 30 wide receiver. He's a player that's really shined off of the efficiency of Russell Wilson's deep ball. And he did get some targets with Geno Smith in there, but he's a player who wins tight routes and runs them well. And when the ball is put where it needs to be, he catches it. DK Metcalf is a player who can probably perform better with bad quarterbacking and just go up and get it. And so it's going to be to the detriment of Tyler Lockett, not because of his skills, but his skill set just doesn't really fit what Geno Smith's going to probably be doing.
Yeah, I think you said that well, where I agree with you. I was actually going to say top 30 as well. So we're in agreement there. Lockett, he can make plays underneath on those crossing routes too, to be sure. But his days are made a lot of times by the deep routes from Russell Wilson, or just like the crazy, like corner of the end zone touchdown passes from Russell Wilson. But I don't see Geno really airing it out to that extreme. And then a guy like DK Metcalf, you can throw him a hitch route or a slant. I think he's got a good enough 3-cone. He can run some of those, and he can do some do some damage with yards after catch. And so that's why DK Metcalf was obviously the next guy we were going to ask about here. I think DK Metcalf is still a top 15. I think 15. Top 15 receiver the next month and a half. What do you think?
I have him as top 12, so we're pretty close on that one. I mean, you just saw it on the touchdown drive. where he scored the touchdown with Geno Smith, that wasn't like he had worked himself open or anything. It was just him being more imposing on the cornerback and
Mhm.
Geno Smith just trusting him. I think this is going to be kind of like an Allen Robinson of years past situation where the guy can just go up and catch those bad contested balls that we know Geno Smith is good at throwing, and that he's going to be the more trusted weapon because he's probably going to earn the trust of Geno Smith by bailing him out of some bad decision making, as opposed to Tyler Lockett, who just doesn't have that same athletic profile.
Yeah, I mean Lockett is awesome, but he's just not the same caliber of guy. And boy,
Yeah, he'll have a lot lower ceiling. I mean, that's what he's been good at lately. I think he'll have some good floor play, but his ADOT's going to drop a lot. I'm pretty sure.
And you mentioned that last drive with DK. Let me tell you, I knew I wasn't going to win my matchup in our dynasty league this week because my team is just like I've never seen a team so decimated by injury. But you would think if DK Metcalf is going crazy, which he was against me, that my quarterback, Russell Wilson, would at least be getting points alongside of him. I got to tell you, even though I knew it was over before it started, it was really over on Thursday night when DK Metcalf had 24 points and Russell Wilson was only responsible for about half of it.
Well, in pain for you and me because Tyler Lockett got interfered on what was going to be a long touchdown. And then in the end zone, Tyler Lockett also got interfered on what would have been a second touchdown. And that would have been
and then
really
the play where he was slightly overthrown, which was also the play where Russell Wilson actually hurt his finger. It was just inches away from being a long play too. So pain fantasy wise. And as for someone who bet the over on the Lockett and Russell Wilson player props last week, that was pretty excruciating. Pure pain. Next, we'll do next 2 weeks for this one because I don't really know the timetable for Saquon. Allegedly, he's going to try and come back after 1 week. The original timetable was something like 2 to 4 weeks. And then it's like, oh, he's going to try to only miss one game. He's a quick healer. Like, okay, we'll see. His ankle was like a bowling ball when I saw it on TV, so I'm not so sure. But anyway, Darrell Williams, Devontae Booker, or Damian Williams the next 2 weeks. Pick one of those three guys, Dalton, as your top guy among that group.
I'll go with Damian Williams.
Even with my guy Khalil Herbert actually outcarried
the whole second half. Yeah. But this team just seems like they want to refuse to let Justin Fields throw the ball as much as humanly possible. And Damian Williams is still talented. I think it's probably a two-headed backfield, but I mean, there's a chance these guys are like, it's the Cleveland Browns 2.0 where they're just going to run each of them into the floor. I think going into the half when Damian Williams have 14 touches, it was pretty astounding. And then in the second half, Khalil Herbert comes out and gets like another 11 or 12.
Yeah.
So this team's just going to run it a lot.
Herbert had 12 rushes. I don't think he had any targets even, and no receptions either. So Damian is definitely the passing game guy. Rushing, I thought Herbert looked pretty good running the ball. I'm going to say Darrell Williams, and it's going to be some kind of a split between him and McKinnon, but I do think Darrell is the lead guy. He was already earning more trust, it seemed like, week by week for the Chiefs. I think Bieniemy was asked about the running back by committee thing during the week. Did you see what he said about it?
No, I didn't.
The more the merrier is what he said when someone asked him about the running back committee. So I think there's going to be more than just Darrell, but I think they're totally fine with Darrell being the lead guy. He's been the goal line guy pretty much all season anyway. He's trusted in the passing game too, both blocking and receiving. I think McKinnon will be too, but I'm just going for the guy. I don't think there's that big of a drop off. Like I would have CEH like top 16. I would have Darrell like top 20, like 22. Like it's not much of a drop off in how I think of those two.
Well, in my ranking, to be clear, Darrell Williams is my 2, and I think Devontae Booker for at least me is a clear 3rd.
Which is he's the one that's probably going to have the most volume. So we're not neither of us are chasing the volume here. He had he had 17 touches the other day. He did have 2 touchdowns, but he also only had like 50 something yards on those touches.
But with Darrell, I just want to see how it plays out. I don't know how they're going to use Gore coming off the practice squad, who we talked about a little bit in the preseason. He looked pretty good. And then
he was mostly playing backups, but he's a fun guy. What could change this is if Marlon Mack actually does become a real thing in Kansas City.
That would definitely change it because he would probably transition to goal line work.
That would definitely change things. But just as things stand right now, I'm going Darrell. I'm with you that I would take Damian Williams 2, and then Booker is 3rd for me. but really for the Bears, I just want to see Herbert get the ball more. I really enjoyed.
He was exciting.
I enjoyed watching him play. I enjoyed Matt Waldman breaking down like 5 of his carries on his Twitter page because Matt Waldman loves him some Khalil Herbert. So it's a fun ride for us Jayhawk fans.
It is just to be proven how badly utilized some of our players were during their time. Next, Puka Williams is actually get called up for the Bengals and score 3 touchdowns. So.
Yeah, I think Herbert was always the guy that had a better shot at an NFL future between those two.
Jamar Chase communicating football.
That
could have been a life-changing kind of
he
event.
wouldn't be in the NFL right now.
Well, that actually could be true. Najee Harris came on a recruiting visit too. People forget.
That's pretty big.
There's one photo of it somewhere. Okay, anyway, who's that Pokemon? So, if anyone listening to this, I hope a lot of you probably watched Pokemon when you were a kid. At the halfway point of the show, they had the Who's That Pokemon. They had like the shadow cutout of the Pokemon. You had to try and guess it, and it was just based on nothing but the cutout. Obviously, the graphic I'll show on the YouTube channel in a minute, it's just a generic football player. So we're going to give each other a couple of hints about who this is based on just their statistical profile or whatever. There's really no rules we gave each other, just a couple hints. And we do have to give the person the conference to kind of help us out a little bit. And then we're going to try and guess it. Dalton, who wants to go first here?
I can go first. That way I remind myself not to say
1 second. We've gotta do it. Ready, YouTube?
Who's that Pokemon?
All right, Dalton, don't say his name, but give me the hint.
All right. So he's a top 24 wide receiver in the AFC. He has a league leading 9 end zone targets. 3 out of the 5 weeks, he's led his team in air yards, and he has 18% of the team's targets, and his average depth of target is 17.2 yards. So this guy is a down the field burner who's just been the red zone threat for his team.
And which conference did you say again?
The AFC.
The AFC. It's like I want to say Deontay Johnson, but there's no shot his ADOT is that high.
It would not be Deontay Johnson.
Okay. Let's do 3. Let's do 3 guesses, and Johnny, you can hop in with a guess anytime if you have one on these players as well. John, do you have anything, or are you good here?
I'm gonna guess Mike Williams.
It is not Mike Williams.
Ooh, that was a great
That was a
guess,
good
though.
one though. See, this guy is going to surprise you because you're going to be like, really?
Okay, he's a top 24 receiver in the AFC. 17 yards per target. Leads his team in end zone targets.
Leads the league.
Oh,
He's tied for the league with one other player with 9.
Leads the league. Oh, is it Hollywood Brown?
Hollywood Brown is the other player who has it.
Okay, John, if you have, I think I probably maxed out my guess. Oh wait, Brandon Cooks?
It is not. It is Emmanuel Sanders, the
Emmanuel
34-year-old for the Buffalo Bills.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, he is on an absolute tear. I was surprised to see he had more air yards than Stephon Diggs in 3 of the 5 weeks so far. So, I mean, he has been a monster for whoever drafted him in like the 10th round.
Yeah. And a game against the Chiefs never hurt nobody when it came to padding the stats this year.
Absolutely. Well, when you get 4 of your 9 red zone targets in one game and 2 of them are converted into touchdowns, that does help, especially when you're watching it live.
So just curious, is your second one like because my first one is a top 24 player, but it's more of like a negative connotation, like negative stats. Are both of yours positive, or do you have one negative, one positive?
The next one is 1 positive and 3 negatives.
Okay, I'm pretty much all negative, so this is fun. I'm gonna go next here. We're gonna play this all 4 times because I made it, and why not?
Because I made it.
Because I made it. I'm gonna play it. God dang it! So, without further ado,
Who's that Pokemon?
all right, Evan, don't say his name. This guy is in the AFC. He is a top 24 running back. This player is currently on pace for a measly 568 rushing yards. He's yet to score a rushing touchdown this season. He's only had more than 15 touches 2 times this year. He ranks 50th in rushes per game behind guys like Devin Singletary, Jalen Hurts, Cordero Patterson, and Josh Allen. But he's still a top 24 running back.
And he doesn't have a rushing touchdown.
No rushing touchdowns.
I mean, this has to be a scat back. Let's see.
You say he's in the AFC?
AFC.
Kenyon Drake.
Nope.
Miles Gaskin.
Bingo, Johnny. You know I had to bring Miles Gaskin in there.
Preseason, you talked about him a lot. I was like, there's a couple backs that should have been top 24. I think him and like it was either him, Sanders, or CH. I didn't think you were going to talk about CH or Sanders. So I was like,
Well, and I thought
Gaskin?
CH at first too, but then I remembered he had 200-yard games. I was like, there's no way he's on pace for
for
under
500.
500.
Yeah, and to be clear, the only reason that Gaskin, it's tricky because he's only a top 24 back because he had 10 catches and 2 touchdowns last week.
Yeah,
he
That
was
makes sense.
he was RB 42 before last week, so he had a big week to get him back on track from a fantasy perspective. Dalton, I was told this guy was going to get all the touches. He only has 15 or more twice this year.
Well, it's coming. Fat old Malcolm Brown is just getting phased out here, so it's coming. I mean, look what we saw last week. It's the Miles Gaskin renaissance.
I should have made a second who's that Pokemon graphic and made the football player outline like 1 inch tall just to make it as tiny as possible for Miles Gaskin.
I love me some tiny running backs.
All right, Dalton's up. That means play it again.
Who's that Pokemon?
All right, this guy is a top 24 running back. He is graded within the top 8 for Pro Football Focus. He is a top 24.5 points per game, but he's only the running back 37 in expected points. So he's really outperforming his expectations right now. He only has 8% of his team's targets and 33% of the team's rushing attempts, but he's been targeted on 26% of the routes runs, and he's only played in 2% of the team's 2-minute drill, but he's still within the top 24. He's in the NFC.
In the NFC, is this Antonio Gibson?
It is not Antonio Gibson, but that is a good guess.
The 2-minute drill thing was like, okay, he's almost never on the 2-minute drill, so that was my shot in the dark. All right, God, it's really tough to remember all of these hints. I'm trying to like make mental notes. So he's never plays 2-minute drill.
Never. And it's going to surprise you. It's not somebody who you'd expect to not play the 2-minute drill.
So top 24 back when you like Miles Gaskin was literally RB 24. So I'm assuming this guy. Who else was in that range? I was just looking at this yesterday. Any guesses, Johnny? NFC?
Like, he threw so many like numbers at me. Like run through like the first like 4. I need to process that again.
All right, he's top 8 in PFF for
Okay.
his grading.
Just like
He-
RB grade, not like a
Mhm.
rushing grade or receiving grade. Okay.
He only has 8% of the team's targets, so he's not targeted frequently. He only has 33% of the team's rushing attempts, so he's not the main guy. And he's only been targeted on 26% of his routes run. So he's targeted every 4th route he runs.
I know he's not a top 24 back, but he's probably not that far off. This isn't a guess. This is not a guess. This is just me saying I know it's not this guy, but it like really sounds like this guy. Like it sounds like Giovanni Bernard, but I know it's not him. I know it's not him. 'Cause he
This
missed
guy
it.
is one
He
of the
missed the
most
game.
talented backs in the NFL. I'll say that.
Oh man, in the
Oh,
NFC.
why would you say that part? Is he old?
Is
No.
he old?
Okay, just
Okay. Well, Saquon. Is it Saquon Barkley?
No.
All right, one more guess. NFC.
This guy is literally the 24th ranked half-point PPR running back.
That's no Miles Gaskin is. You always look at like standard scoring when you do this.
No, I'm looking. Oh, sorry. He's the 23rd.
Okay, makes a big difference. God, why can I not remember? He was literally right next to the guy I
He's right
chose.
there.
Oh man,
is it AJ Dillon?
It is not.
Dang it!
no, I knew it wasn't Dylan. Is it Alexander Madison?
Nope. It is
Okay.
Tony Pollard.
Man, I was gonna. I thought about Pollard, but
Yep. He's actually the number 1 graded back by PFF.
I did see that today.
Isn't he like top 5 in like rushing yards too? Like he's kind of up there, isn't he?
I don't know about that high. I just know he's not getting. What surprised me is he only's been used on 2% of the 2-minute drill. So Zeke's just getting
I know
all
he has
that
a lot of
work.
rushing yards. Let me check.
It's funny. I was like thinking about Zeke, but I was like, no, Zeke is in a lot on 2-minute drills. So I was right about that at least. I was right about that thought. All right, we've got one more. And again, mine, like I said, we're going back to the negative here. This one I feel like is obvious, but we'll see if you guys get it.
Who's that Pokemon?
So we're looking at quarterback here. He is a top 36 quarterback in the NFC. He's appeared in all 5 games this season, but has less points than Tyrod Taylor. He only has 59 rushing yards, and he's only rushed more than 3 times in a game, 1 time. And he also only has 2 touchdowns this season.
Is it Taysom Hill?
No, not Taysom
Dang
Hill.
it.
not a bad guess.
I thought that was a gimme. Oh, let's see here.
Wait, 2 like he only has 2 passing touchdowns?
Just 2 total touchdowns.
Oh, it's Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh.
No, not Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, come on.
He hasn't appeared in all 5 games.
Oh, you're right. Trey Lance. Damn him. He has 2 passing touchdowns. He's played all 5
2
games.
total
Just
touchdowns.
2 total touchdowns.
Who is
I don't know if they're both passing. I just have written down 2 total
2
touchdowns.
total touchdowns. And he's in the NFC. Is it
In-
Jared? It's not Jared Goff. There's no way. Is it Jared Goff?
No. John, I'll give you one more guess.
appeared in all 5 games?
Oh my God. I'm in. No, that's AFC. It's not Davis Mills.
He hasn't appeared in all 5 games.
Why is it so hard for me?
Oh, is it Justin Fields?
Yes, John.
Okay,
better
he
this
tri-
game than all
That
of
was a
us.
tricky game. Okay,
That was tricky because he's only
appeared.
Oh, you tricky.
That was rude.
I like when I saw he had fewer points than Tyrod Taylor on the season. I was like, okay, well, I have to do like that's like just a great nugget for this game.
That was
Oh,
good.
that's funny.
And then
That's
I
a
thought
fun
about
game.
his first game of having like just literally 40 yards of offense. I was like, that might be it.
Yeah, that was a pretty fun game. We might keep doing that actually.
Yeah, that's
honestly.
actually
That was
really
awesome.
fun.
All right. Now, the panic meter. Again, pretty self-explanatory. Are we panicking? Are we not panicking? Dalton, we'll start with my 3 because that's the order I have them on this list. Odell Beckham Jr. I put this guy first because this guy, on a scale of 1 to 5 for me, Odell is a 5 on my panic meter. I am full-blown panicking. I know he's only played 3 games, but you want to guess how many yards he's on pace for over a 17-game season in this 3-game stretch?
580.
He's on pace for 450 yards
Jesus.
over if you took this over a 17-game season. It'll get better. I'm hoping it'll get better, but it's just he was good the first game. But what just concerns me so much is the second game. You know, I have him in my DraftKings lineup. I'm like, okay, Odell looked good. He's back. Let's fire him up. He's super cheap this week, 5,800. He's never going to be this cheap again after he has 80 yards again this week. Well, turns out Baker Mayfield had like probably one of the worst games of the last 2 years that he's had. Very bad. Odell did basically nothing. And then last week, you know, Baker was pretty good. His team scores 42 points. Odell has 3 targets, 2 catches, and 20 yards. They have 35 rushes and 32 pass attempts. And that's just who they are. That's what they want to be. They want to, I mean, they'll pass it, but if they can win a game with Baker throwing the ball 15 times, they will do it because both those running backs are incredible. And Dalton, I want to read this tweet. This is from Heath Cummings of CBS. Odell Beckham, since he went to Cleveland, 100.
Pain.
Wait, hold on. Yes, it's Payne. Okay, never mind. I'm done. I'm reading this wrong. 106 receptions, 1,478 yards, and 7 touchdowns on 195 targets. Now, can you guess? I'm not going to make you guess. It'll be too hard. Sterling Shepard, 141 receptions, 1,455 yards, and 7 touchdowns on literally the exact same amount of targets. So he has 35 more catches. He has 23 fewer yards and the exact same amount of touchdowns on the exact same amount of targets. That's not what we signed up for this whole time for Odell in Cleveland, and it just hasn't been any better this year than it has been in years past. I know you probably got him at a discount, but if you've had any injuries, which I don't know how you play fantasy football this year and not have at least one injury on your team, if you do, like, it's really hard to get away from him in your starting lineup, and I just don't want to do it. I don't have faith in Baker week to week. Overall, I have faith in Baker, but just week to week, it's so up and down. And even when Baker is up, it's not a guarantee for Odell.
Yeah, so I had him at an 8, so we're pretty similar, which would be a 4 on your scale. Math is fun. I mean, the first thing, and you talked about it with the rushing to passing split, the way the Browns play is just not conducive to consistent wide receiver outings. And then more importantly, between Donovan People-Jones, now Anthony Schwartz, who's making appearances on the offense, and Odell Beckham Jr., that like deep threat role gets rotated out in the Browns games, and it's not a very productive role as is. And when you can't already count on Odell to get one, literally one deep target a game, it gets really worrisome. I mean, we saw it last week. Donovan People-Jones was the guy that got his big target in the game. 2 weeks ago, it was Odell against the Vikings, but Baker Mayfield has a torn labrum and can't throw the ball downfield worth anything, and so he underthrows Odell by 5 yards. So,
well, then at some point, Jarvis Landry is going to be back too and command not the deep passes, but just command volume in that receiving game.
And this offense has the second lowest target total to their wide receivers, only behind the Detroit Lions. And all of their targets are going to the running backs and the tight ends right now.
Has a receiver caught a touchdown pass? I think last time I had seen they either hadn't yet or they had just caught one. They're basically the Chiefs before the Chiefs brought in Jeremy Maclin like in 2016.
Did Donovan People-Jones catch one last week, or did he just get the yards? I'm
not sure. But regardless, they either have 1 or 0 wide receiver touchdowns this year.
Yeah, it's just not a productive offense for wide receivers. And the reason Jarvis Landry does well in it is because he runs those short routes that Baker can throw. Mm-hmm. But even with a strong offensive line, this team just doesn't want to throw it deep. And I think that's because Stefanski doesn't really trust Baker Mayfield. When we saw it in the Vikings game, he's just not the guy. I mean, the Browns, we've talked about this before. The Browns have a great team. It's Baker Mayfield, just not a quarterback to make those plays. And Odell needs a quarterback that kind of has that it factor to give him those chances. And it's going to be inconsistent without it.
Yeah, and I like Stefanski, but I think that's a failure on his part to not manufacture some ways for Odell to get the ball if this continues. It's like, man, Odell can do a lot. He doesn't just have to be the deep guy. He can be the underneath. He's such a great route runner, but it hasn't happened. I don't have faith that it's going to, because at this point we're multiple years in, and if you Google the name of Odell Beckham Jr., you get a lot of the Browns should just trade this guy because they're not using him, and he's getting paid a lot of money, and he's probably not going to be back next year. So if he gets traded, that's probably great for him.
Honestly.
At least better for him than the situation he's in now. It might not be great fantasy-wise, but at least better. I would take that. A.J. Brown. So obviously, if you drafted A.J. Brown, you've been disappointed. He didn't do much really the first 2 weeks, and then he missed some time with the hamstring injury. And then last week in his first game back, he didn't do a whole lot either. Dalton, where are you as an A.J. Brown fantasy manager? Scale of 1 to 5 here on the panic meter.
So I have him as a 2.5. Despite missing basically a game and a half, A.J. Brown still has 25% of the team's total air yards, including games he's not played, which is kind of a crazy stat. It just goes to show you he still is getting a lot of that deep volume. Among all eligible wide receivers who have gotten more than 8 downfield attempts, A.J. Brown is the only one, and downfield attempts of 20 yards or more. A.J. Brown is the only one to not come down without a catch, and he's second in pass attempts over 20 yards. He has 9.
I think he also was at week 1. He dropped a deep pass in one of the first couple games.
So this is just one of those situations where he's getting everything we thought he was going to get. The issue is he's just not coming away with them. He's going to hit right. I really thought he was going to hit right against Jacksonville, but he only played 63% of the snaps. I don't think he's quite right.
3 catches, 38 yards on 6 targets. On a snap count, I had seen some stuff after the game that he was a little frustrated that he was on the snap count, but you understand it first week back up.
And I mean, against the Jaguars, they let Derrick Henry control the game. And Tannehill, after week 1, has kind of come back down to his efficiency, which is what you want to see. Play action is not
I think
back up from
Tannehill is
5%.
I think Tannehill is still taking a step back though, but yeah, it's been better.
Absolutely. But a talent like AJ Brown is, I just don't really have a big concern. It's going to be frustrating, probably a little more, but he's still easily a top 24 wide receiver with the capability of like ending the week as a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I'm at a 1. I'm not worried about AJ Brown at all. We mentioned the production and all that he had last week was not great. I just think he's too talented to not produce, just plain and simple. And even if Tannehill does stink, AJ Brown is, talk about a yards after the catch monster and DK Metcalf. Like AJ Brown is like the yards after the catch monster in the NFL. So they can throw him tunnel screens and drag routes and whatever, and he can still go make his day off of that stuff pretty frequently. That's what he's done a lot throughout his career, because it's kind of funny. He has a tendency to drop deep passes. He's dropped, like, I remember at least a couple he's dropped in his career. Yeah. He plays the Bills this week, so tough matchup. I mean, he could still go off because he's awesome, but tough matchup this week. Chiefs week 7, Colts week 8.
God,
those
week
are
7's going to be nice for him.
those are 2 games that could be blow up spots for AJ Brown. And then even against the Bills, you figure they probably can't just run Derrick Henry 35 times and compete and win that game. So you would think at least the volume should be there, and then that just gives you hope that the production could be too. But yeah, I'm not worried about AJ Brown, and any worries that I have are tied to the quarterback. And I think the struggles so far have been more about just health and quarterback play than him, outside of the one drop pretty much.
Yeah, and I do want to see a game where a team just stops Derrick Henry again. I mean, that's going to come. It has to come.
You would think they would just sell out to do it, but
you would think. But then again, Urban Meyer won't even ride home into playing with his team, so they were not the team to do that.
Well, Urban Meyer wants to see his boys have a 250 rushing passing, so he's got very realistic expectations and hopes for his season.
Yeah, he does. I'm surprised realistically he wasn't the first coach fired, but apparently NFL conduct is just at an all-time low.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could predict the email leaks. Without that, Urban's probably number 1. So speaking of guys who teams are just selling out to stop right now, TJ Hawkinson. So week 2 and week 1, Hawkinson was very good. He was like 15 and 20 points those first 2 weeks, but it's been tough sledding the last couple of weeks. I've got Hawkinson as a 3 on my panic meter. And number 1, he's got the ankle injury he's been dealing with. He didn't practice today because of a knee, so I don't love that. It's like a completely different thing than he's been dealing with the last couple of weeks today. Don't love that, but just the production in the last 3 weeks after he started so well, my mouse is dead. 13 targets in the last 3 weeks. So the volume hasn't been there. He's tight end 7 on the season, but he's tight end 31 in the last 3 weeks. He's got, again, 13 targets, and he only has like 10.4 points total in the last 3 weeks. So it's been bad, which it's just really funny to think about. That 10 points total is still tight end 31 over a 3 week span. Like not even close to a starting caliber tight end, but like good. It's like basically 3 points a week is still top 32 tight end. The offense is bad. Goff is bad. Goff was spreading it around, which is bad. The offensive line is in shambles, which, as we've talked about a million times, is a very bad thing for Jared Goff. He needs good protection. He needs everything to kind of just be there for him. He can't make it happen, really. Defenses know that the Lions have absolutely nobody on the outside. Only going to get worse now that Quintez Cephas is hurt. And they are selling out to stop Hawkinson. They are bracketing him every play over the middle and saying, you make one of your receivers on the outside beat us, which they just can't do. So it's either Hawkinson trying to get open in double coverage or passes basically at the line of scrimmage to the running backs. That is their passing offense right now, and I'm pretty concerned about Hawkinson going forward.
So I have him at a 2, and the reason for that is so week 3 he was limited with an ankle injury, and week 5 he was limited with his knee injury. Those 2 weeks are really his bad weeks. Week 4 he had 6.2 points, which by all means isn't great, but for a tight end it's probably a top 12 tight end. I haven't looked, but that's probably close to up there. And week 3, he only got 7% of the team targets and 75% of the routes. Part of that was the injury. And then week 5, he only got 10% targets and 82% of the routes. Both of those were the injuries. As a whole, though, he still has a 20% air yard share. He's still the second most talented option on this game.
Mhm.
And what we haven't seen other than week 1 is the Lions aren't just getting absolutely blown out. I mean, they're playing some really tight games and they're able to play like the football style that I think their coaching staff wants, which isn't as much passing as we would want to see out of a bad team. And I anticipate that to get better. But this is a great show and tell on why you don't draft anybody with the top 3 tight ends in the first 10 rounds. Because even though he's the tight end 6, so he's about where you got him, right around Mark Andrews and Kyle Pitts, he's just not performing at that level that you need. I mean, he probably went around guys like Cortland Sutton and Tyler Lockett and Deontay Johnson and Cooper Kupp. And all of those guys have had consistently good weeks. I'm not concerned, but again, it just shows why the makeup of those mid-round tight end teams is a lot more difficult for you to be a league winner unless these guys really hit like magically somehow. Mark Andrews absolutely went electric last night, but you need something more consistent.
Yeah, and it had been really bad for Andrews until the other night, pretty much too. You mentioned all of the air yards and all of that stuff. Yep, that's great. The Lions have to find a way to get him the ball, and that falls on Anthony Lynn, and that makes me a little more nervous too. So there's just that whole dynamic too. Kenny Galladay. So Dalton, he is injured again. Definitely. Now we're to your 3 guys here. Good candidate for this list. Where are you at on the panic meter with Kenny Galladay?
So I have him up to a 4 out of 5. I mean, you likely drafted Kenny Galladay as a flex, I would say, in most cases, maybe even your wide receiver 2, depending on your team comp. And it just sucks because he is incredibly talented, and it looks like Daniel Jones is finally figuring out football, which is good. But this whole offense is just incredibly inconsistent in their usage of players, from Kadarius Toney going off the last 2 weeks to before that it was Sterling Shepard. And then the 1 week we had a really good like OG Kenny Galladay week was the week that like half their wide receiver team wasn't there. So he got targeted at a monster rate. And then at this point, he's getting kind of that injury tag. I mean, he missed a lot of the preseason with injury. He's injured again. He missed.
He was hurt. Yeah, he was hurt last year too. Yep.
Yeah, and so it's just really concerning going forward. And then you have the injury to Daniel Jones, and if he doesn't play, you get the competition for who has a bigger neck between Davis Mills and Mike Glennon. It's just not a good look for Kenny Galladay, and I just need to see him used at a better rate. His highest routes run in a game among the wide receivers is 72%. So he's not even running like an alpha target share of 90% like he should be. It's just not a good look all around. And part of that is Jason Garrett just can't use weapons effectively.
So I'd largely agree with you. I've got him at a 3, so a little bit lower than you. My main source of concern is that he's not being treated like the number 1 guy. Right now, Kadarius Toney is being treated like the number 1 guy the last couple of weeks. And I still think Galladay can have a productive year and help your team. You know, he 116 yards last week, and then he had 64 the week before that. He hasn't had a touchdown yet this year, so like that's one thing that you can almost guarantee is going to change and will help the raw fantasy production. But Dalton, if you're asking me rest of season who I'm taking, I think I'm taking Kadarius Toney, and I think the reason why Sterling Shepard was going off, well, he's pretty good, but also like in like the slot stuff and just like those easy throws, like that's just what Daniel Jones is more comfortable doing. Whereas like Kenny Galladay, we've talked about it, and I think it can get better, but it's a lot of like the post stuff, the vertical stuff, you've got to fit it into a window, or like he hasn't, like I haven't seen Galladay make a catch down the sideline yet this year, and like that's what he's also just awesome at. So his skill set doesn't mesh as well with where Daniel Jones is as a player right now. And so I think I just have concern that Toney is the guy in that offense in the passing game.
Yeah, well, and it's just a bad match. I mean, Gettleman just looks like he wanted to go out there and get a weapon for Daniel Jones, but the way those two players play is just completely different. I mean, he would really fit with a quarterback who's willing to, throw tight balls on the line and throw them effectively like Stafford did. And Daniel Jones needs first looks that just look good. And Toney's probably going to have more separation, even though Galladay could probably make a catch when he only has half a foot of separation.
Yep, I'm with you. Dalvin Cook. So obviously, anyone that has Dalvin Cook, it's been a roller coaster of emotions the last couple of weeks. I'm curious. So this has got to be just an injury thing. Why you have him on here, right? Like without the injury, is he on this list? Even if he's playing and like not playing great.
No, but it's the comments around his injury that made me put him on this list. I just want to read what he said recently after the press conference. He goes, "You play through it. Part of this game is playing through the pain, and that's what comes with it. Playing through injury is something different. Playing through pain, that's what comes with this game, and that's what I'm dealing with a little bit." And then it goes on. A couple of sports therapists on Twitter were diagnosing what his ankle injury is and basically saying that this is going to be a full season thing and that Dalvin Cook's probably not going to come back to what we would consider fully healthy.
Let me just say, first, I would have to actually go find this. I just like saw it in passing on Twitter, but it sounds like that this is basically exactly what he played with for a lot of last season and played through it and was obviously great. So he can do it and just did it last year.
And that may be the case, but we're not even seeing the usage that would like lead me to think that. Even in week 4, when he was supposedly healthy enough to play, he only got 49% of the snaps.
Well, he wasn't, though. Like, he was healthy enough to play because Mike Zimmer wanted him out there. He played the first half, didn't play the whole second half until the last 2 drives when the Vikings were like, okay, like, we're about to lose this game. Like, we got to get you out there. And he like still looked pretty good in the last 2 drives, but he clearly wasn't right.
Well, and that's just my concern is that if he's going to be playing in this weird split, I mean, year to date, and granted 2 games he did not play, he has 39% of the team's total running back snaps, and Alexander Mattison has 40%. I mean, it's just not looking good going forward for him to have like an alpha role, which you took him at, for him to do. We'll see what week 6 looks like.
Scale of 1 to 5, where are you at here?
I have him at a 3.5. I mean,
3.5. Wow.
He's still good enough to get it. And in week 4, he still had all of the short down and distance yards, which you want to see. But he didn't get any. He got 1 target in the game to Alexander Madison's 4. And he's just not getting the same usage that Madison is getting, and they're kind of splitting the backfield carries.
But I just don't think you can even like worry about his usage in week 4 because he like clearly shouldn't have even been playing in that game. Like that seems like that was pretty evident by the fact that he literally didn't play almost the whole second half. Like he literally wasn't out there until the game was on the line.
I agree, but just from what I've seen on Twitter, it just looks like he's going to be dealing with this injury for a while, and I don't know how long we're going to have this discrepancy.
Yeah. But again, I mean, if this is what he played through last year, it's like, is it a guarantee he can do it again? No, but it's just like, I think we're just talking about stuff that we just don't really know. I mean, we don't know the answer to any of this, but like, especially injury stuff. It's just like, I hate the Twitter docs that go on there and try and diagnose things instantly. I know you were at the game, but it was like, oh, CEH just tore his ACL on that play because of the way his knee bent and did this. Like, well, actually, he's only out for 2 weeks, but thanks for playing. Like, you get that a lot. Like Christian McCaffrey's like, oh God, this guy's out for like 2 months. Like, look at that. He just pulled up like the mechanism and the way his
and there was a pop underneath the tight.
And clearly a grade 3 by the pop. You could say it's like I hate that so much.
Yeah, and I know what you mean, but Cook's been pretty open about what the injury is, and it's not like we're diagnosing a game time decision. We've seen
but it was a game time decision. He wasn't marked inactive until like 10:30.
Again, that's where my issue comes from.
I literally tweeted like at 10 o'clock, like I think I'm still playing Dalvin Cook if you have him if he plays, and then like 10 minutes later he's out.
Well, and that's just my concern is that he might be close enough to play, but if he's not playing at like 100%, I just don't know how many times we're going to see these games where him and Madison aren't splitting it. And then as an owner, you're just going to have to be stuck starting Cook and hoping he gets that workload.
I think in the short term, I have that concern. In the long term, I don't. I'm only at a 1 for Cook. I've got to see the injury be a problem for longer to truly be a concern because I don't want to try and predict what that's going to be like for him, especially when he played through it last year and was great. It's like, this week, if he plays, like, could he be, even if it's not like week 4 where he plays the first half, doesn't play second half, plays like the last series, could he be Joe Mixon this week and play 18 snaps? Like, yeah, he definitely could. You're going to have a headache on your hands this week if he plays, but he could just also just be Dalvin Cook and be awesome. But I just think like long term, I'm not worried yet. If the Vikings are smart, they will not play him this week because they have a bye week the week after. So let's just get Dalvin Cook 2 more weeks of rest and then bring him back week. I guess that'd be week 7. What are we, week 6?
7.
So bring him back week
No,
7.
week 8.
Bring him back week 8 and let him roll for there. I can't get there yet because it's still so early, and we've seen Cook play through this exact injury last year.
Yeah, I could see that.
Miles Sanders. Now, this one, obviously, near and dear to my heart on the panic meter, but you're the one that picked it. So just full disclosure there. Miles Sanders, I'll let you lead off before I give the predictable Miles Sanders take.
Well, real quick, we're on the Philadelphia Eagles. Did you know Jalen Hurts is the only player to be top 12 at their position every week? Crazy stat. Nobody else has.
I put the tweet in. I don't remember who tweeted it, but I put the tweet in the newsletter that he's new Blake Bortles, and it's like, yeah, he actually. I think that's right now. I think that's kind of right.
But on to Miles Sanders. I'm at a 10 or a 5, I guess, on this.
Wow. Oh, so you're higher than me. I'm at a 3.5. I thought I was going to be bringing the doom and gloom. I guess I'm pro Miles Sanders.
No, if I'm a Miles Sanders owner, I'm crying at night. Let's just start with what's going on. Last week, he played a season high 75 rushing, 75% of the snaps, and still just didn't look that great. He only got 52% of the rushing attempts to Kenneth Gainwell's 48%, and then on the year, he has 50% of the team's rushing attempts. He's basically splitting it down the middle. Half of those are Hurts, half of those are Gainwell. But then he has 10% of the team's targets, and it's getting harder every week for me to point to where he's going to get his production. In the end zone, it doesn't seem like they really want to run the ball that frequently. And if they do, Kenneth Gainwell's been the back. In the 2-minute drill, which is where 2 years ago, his rookie season, Sanders made a lot of his points. Gainwell has 93% of the snaps. Miles Sanders has 7%. And at short down and distance, Miles Sanders has 56% of the snaps to Kenneth Gainwell's 37%. And let's remember, Kenneth Gainwell is a rookie still learning this offense. Coming into the season, Nick Sirianni kind of talked him down in the preseason and kind of scared me away from him. But it really looks like he's usurping Sanders in a lot of the valuable touches we want. Yeah, he's going to get that 2nd and 10 run, but that's not really that valuable. The goal line work, the short down and distance work, that's where a lot of the value comes from. And then the 2-minute snaps where they're going to check down to the back for some easy outs, that's going to Gainwell too. So it's like, I mean, what are you doing? You drafted Miles Sanders as your fourth round pick, and he's just not even getting work that's close to, I mean, it's almost a 50-50 split at this point.
I think so. Before the season, if I would have asked you what Miles Sanders' upside was, what would you have said?
I mean, me personally, this is me trying not to be biased now, but I would have said, 90% of the team's rush, running back attempts. And
like if you had to give a number, like top 12, like upside of a top 12 running back?
Top 15, probably, yeah.
I think if you thought Sanders, and not just you, but like the general you, if the general person thought that Sanders had like that RB1 upside because, well, this guy was like the 10 overall pick last year. He didn't have a great year, but like, look at him. He's going in the 4th round. He could really be a boom on my team, be like an RB1 in my RB2 spot. If you thought that, I can see how he'd be a 5 on like the panic meter. But you know me, I never thought that. Like he's not that far off where I thought he'd be. And I think really, like I would have predicted more usage for him, less for Gainwell, but just like production-wise, it's not like that far off. And he doesn't have a touchdown rushing or receiving yet this year. So my thing is just like, even if he does this same thing, the production isn't great, the volume isn't even great. If he just scores some touchdowns, like he's going to be a top 24 running back because it's just so weak when you get that far down at running back. So like I'm concerned for sure, but I can't bring myself that high because I still think he's going to do enough to be useful in the RB2 spot on your team. And that's just not easy to find.
Do you want to take a guess on Sanders and Gainwell's PPR ranks
Well, I know the half point per reception is Miles Sanders 31 or 32, Gainwell 31. And I know Gainwell's caught a million passes this year, so I'm sure Gainwell's like RB like 24, Sanders like RB 40.
It's 33-32 in PPR. So
Oh, really? So it's like about the same.
Yeah, so it's just super close and neck, and you could have basically got Kenneth Gainwell for free,
Yeah.
and you paid a premium for Miles Sanders. Granted, some of Gainwell's scores have been fluky, and he did have a a PPR 7 finish 1 week against Kansas City.
Here's the thing with the Eagles. It's not just that he is not getting the volume. The running backs have only carried the ball 22.5% of their plays this season in Philadelphia.
They just don't like to run it.
They don't hand it off often.
Meanwhile,
So he has 48. He has 48 carries, so like 10 a game. That's like, I was talking about the Myles Gaskin volume. That's like right there with Gaskin. He's right there with Myles Gaskin in rushes per game.
they were drafted right next to each other.
The hope that I have that he can at least stabilize a little bit is number one, touchdowns, and number two, I just don't think Jalen Hurts is very good. I think they could maybe do well to lean on Miles Sanders a little bit more to stop getting down by multiple touchdowns. And the third, I mean, they came back and won last week, but maybe they could have more consistently good drives if they got him a little bit more involved.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of the Eagles offense as a whole, Devonta Smith has 42% of the team's total air yards, which he is due for. I know he's had a couple of all right games, but he's due for a massive game.
Yeah. And then he also he would have like 11 more fantasy points himself if he would have stayed in bounds against the Chiefs. He would have caught the late touchdown that I don't even know who caught it in the second to last play of the game, whatever that was.
Yeah, he's actually had 2 touchdowns called back, and both of them were above 30 yards.
Yep. So amazingly, I still have a little bit of hope for Sanders, but not again. I don't think he's ever going to be an RB1, strong RB2 type of guy, but I think he can get it together enough. Hopefully some more volume and hopefully some touchdowns, and he can be useful for your team. But again, that's not, 3.5 is still fairly high on the panic scale. It's just not quite DEFCON 1 at like you are with your 5.
Yeah. I would be looking to, if I could get him for a worthy price, I would trade him away.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not really sure what you can trade him for. It's funny because they play tomorrow against the Bucks. The Bucks are allowing like 30 less rushing yards per game than anybody else in the NFL right now. It's like 40 something yards per game. Second place is in the 70s. Like Gainwell's catching all these passes. So of course Miles Sanders is going to have like 100 yards and 2 touchdowns tomorrow. Like it's going to happen. It like fantasy football just makes no sense, especially this year. You're getting stupid crap like that all the time, it feels like. So
are we talking about when Miles Sanders was your sit of the week last year against the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, against New Orleans, and he had all he needs is to pop an 80-yard run. Hasn't happened yet. I'm gonna steal. I'm gonna steal Ian Hartwitz's helicopter game. It's gonna be Miles Sanders this week. he's gonna go off. If you play in DraftKings Thursday night, go contrarian, and it's gonna either blow up.
Put him in your captain spot.
No, not captain spot. Let's not get too crazy here. Tom Brady does have like a hurt thumb, but I'd still go Tom Brady in the captain spot.
And I think, that'll do it for us today.
Yeah, we will end on the old Miles Sanders helicopter game.
Came from Evan Riggs, not Dalton Willie.
It's a win-win for me because if it happens, it's just a hilarious call. If it doesn't happen, I've never been the biggest fan of Miles Sanders, the football player. So it is what it is, and that's gonna do it for us today. Episode 50 of the Half Point Per Podcast. And again, you guys can follow us. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Half Point Per Pod. The link tree has been in the show notes the last few weeks. It'll be in there again this week. Go click on that. You can see everywhere HPPP lives. Go read the newsletter at halfpointpersubstack.com, halfpointperpod.substack.com. Go read that every week. Have had a lot of fun doing that. And we'll talk to you guys. I don't know for sure if we will on Sunday. We'll talk about that offline. Either Sunday or again next week. I think we'll be bringing back Who's That Pokemon for a second run next week. along with some other stuff. But thank you guys so much for listening, and we will talk to you soon.